Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Financial Planner Live podcast. And I am joined this week by Kate Evans, trainee paraplanner at Lucent Financial Planning. How are you this morning, Kate?
Yeah, hi Elena. Doing really well, thanks. How about you?
I'm doing very well, thanks for asking. Thank you very much for taking the time out to speak with me this morning. So, like we always begin, do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
A little bit about me. Yeah, so I would badge myself up as a bit of a career changer. So earlier this year, I got made redundant from a role in logistics and supply chain, and moved over to what I think anyway is the wonderful world of financial planning. So as it stands at the moment, I have just started probably in the last couple of weeks as a trainee paraplanner. So really getting involved in some of the client annual review stuff and a bit of research there. So all new stuff, all causing my brain to essentially melt, but having a whale of a time doing it.
Oh, excellent. I'm so glad you're enjoying it. And you, as you said, you've been doing the trainee paraplanning things for a couple of weeks now, but you previously were working in like client liaison, sort of client relationship, am I right?
Yeah, so I did that for the first 2 months in my new role, and kind of a fantastic introduction into the world of a financial planning firm. So I think, like the same with my previous career, really understanding how it works from, I suppose, the ground up is going to make you even better in the role. So yeah, I did that for a couple of months working with the client liaison team and kind of meeting all the great people we have here at Lucent.
Mm-hmm. Fab, how exciting. And as you said, you've like a second career-ist as such. So you touched on it a little bit just then to begin with, but what were you doing previously then?
Yeah, so I was originally chartered in procurement and supply chain. So I started off as essentially what you call a buyer. So I'd just buy random things for big companies. So I used to be an expert in pest control, ground maintenance. So I'd buy tractors and lawn mowing services. And as I progressed through that, I ended up doing more of what I'd call a cost transformation role, which was end-to-end efficiencies. There you go. What on earth's that? But you would have seen probably the big ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be my job to get the product from China and the Far East all the way to the shelf in a supermarket as cost effectively as possible. So kind of like reviewing stuff like that, process mapping, working with stakeholders and seeing if we could save them money.
On the surface, and we'll delve into this a bit further, but on the surface, it sounds like a completely different role, doesn't it? It's what you're doing now, especially on the surface of it as such. So how did you find out about financial planning? What made you be like, okay, I'm going to move into this as such?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. So my other half had a bit of a oh crap moment and was like, I need to sort out my pensions. And he ended up getting a recommendation from, I think, our mortgage advisor. And anyway, this guy rocks on up and he's like, right, I can move all your current pensions and we'll put it in this fund, this fund, this fund, this fund, and this fund. And it'll cost you, I don't know, I'm making it up, 2%.
Mm-hmm.
And he left. And my other half was like, why would I give this man my money just to put it into those funds in a pension? So it's really like he just didn't care about us. And so because I do quite a lot of running and cycling, I was like, right, I'm going to listen to some podcasts. And I stumbled across, I think, is it Chris Budd's Financial Wellbeing podcast?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And obviously that links to Ovation Finance. Name drop there, not deliberately so. Ended up pointing Richard in the direction of those guys. And we ended up with a great financial advisor who actually asked questions about us and what we wanted to do and our kind of life goals, aspirations. So we've ended up with a fantastic financial planner for the last couple of years. And every time we've had an annual review, I've always been a bit like, oh, I could do this. Could I do this? And Tom essentially went, yeah, why not? So when I was made redundant, I'd always wanted to do something different, or I say always, the last couple of years I'd wanted to do something different. And like, there's never going to be a better chance. I'm leaving a job, they're making me redundant, so essentially I jokingly say paying me to leave. Why wouldn't I go and do something different now? And so I just went, yeah, right, bit the bullet, and here I am now.
And obviously it's going really well. Been doing it for how long is it, like 11, 10 weeks, something in the industry now?
Yeah, so started, I think it was the beginning of June. So yeah, for all intents and purposes, let's go 10, 11 weeks.
Yeah, and look, you've already gone through the client liaison, worked with the client liaison team, now, you know, stepping into trainee power planning. So you're obviously doing really well, and a credit to the industry already as such.
Thanks.
How did you go about it? So then obviously you're meeting with this financial planner, you're like, okay, I think I could do this. I think I'd find it a really fulfilling career. Obviously you've built another career in a completely different industry. How did you go about making that jump from, you know, procurement as such into financial planning?
Yeah, I suppose I was fortunate in the sense that because I knew Tom, and Tom's kind of, I think, in that next gen space, he introduced me to all the guys at Next Gen Planners. So within the first like couple of weeks of moving into the industry, or wanting to move into the industry, I was kind of contacting and being in touch with people that their way of financial planning resonated with my own experience and what I wanted to do. So for me, the big reason of moving careers was wanting to make a difference. So I said in the supply chain stuff, nobody that walks into a supermarket or has a service from any of the industries I've been in would know that I've done anything in that. Whereas actually seeing the value that a financial planner adds to someone's life, and kind of in my own circumstance giving me that little nudge to take that career change, I think that's hugely rewarding. So kind of a fascinating, brilliant thing to be doing. And so I'm hanging around with all these guys, literally just emailing people going, can I have 30 minutes of your time? Can you tell me what it's like to be a financial planner? What are the good things? What are the bad things? And essentially probably networked my way into quite a lot of conversations just to give me that confidence. As I spoke to you, and you gave me some great advice on what I needed to do to be, I suppose, appealing to financial planning businesses. And then I went on what I'll jokingly say, a video spam spree. So instead of just sending my CV out there, because frankly, no one would be interested in my CV. Even the few people that looked at it went, we don't understand this. Tell us what you did. And so kind of, just did some video asking for coffees with people just to really understand how I could break into the industry in the area that I was in. So Solihull and the surrounding. And fortunately, Steve at Lucent got back in touch and went through an interview process, and voila, I make it sound easy. There was lots of, it's like an emotional roller coaster.
I can imagine.
There were days of people not getting back to me, people getting back to me like, oh, this is never going to work, I'm never going to get a job, followed by days of, this is brilliant, I've got all these meetings with people. So yeah, I was on gardening leave for 3 months, and over that time, I think I sent out probably 50, 60 video asks, got about 10 responses. So yeah, it was really a roller coaster of just putting myself out there, because no one's going to know you exist. A job's not going to fall on your lap. And then at the same time, I started studying my ROs. I did RO1 as the first one, to hopefully show some willing on my part that I wasn't just some randomer going, can I have a job, please?
So by video ask, what do you mean by that? Would you contact people on LinkedIn and stuff like that and ask them to meet you for like a Zoom call or such?
Yeah. So I'd research firms. I was very conscious that I'd had this great experience with my own financial planner, and wanted to hopefully get into a firm that had that same ethos, more about the client than necessarily the product, etc. And then so would essentially send whoever was on their website a video ask, just introducing myself, who I was, that I was a career changer, looking to move into the industry, and what I liked about their business, because I was being quite specific. I've heard, as probably lots of people have, not the horror stories, but everybody has a view of what financial advice was like. So I wanted to make sure that I wasn't quite going into that space. And essentially introduce myself rather than just sending a CV going, have a look at this, can I have a chat?
Yeah, fab. And did you find, you guys, I know you mentioned there that you sent sort of like 50 to 60 video asks as such, and you sort of met with 10 people. I think especially on my side, you know, working with Recruit UK, people get a bit nervous that they're going to get like completely ignored. They're going to send loads and loads of video requests out and no one is ever going to get back to them. So did you find out that like people were receptive to that? There were people open to speak with you and having the conversations?
Yeah, and I think you've got to go with a bit of thick skin, because again, financial planning is not big corporate business, is it? It's lots of small firms, and those small firms, I've learned now, are super busy and don't have a huge amount of time. So you not getting a response isn't a reflection of you or what you've said. It's just might be the wrong time. They might not have a chance to pick it up. But I had a few positive reviews or responses, because it's different, isn't it? It's not just a CV, and I haven't just emailed asking for a role. It's very much actually I just wanted to understand and learn from people, so I could kind of be that sponge of knowledge. So when the right opportunity came up at a later date, I knew what I was talking about, and I wasn't so fresh faced and new into a world that frankly at the beginning I didn't fully understand.
Yeah, fully. And I think it's very interesting the way that you've done it. So you took an approach where you contacted firms directly. Were you also like applying to job adverts and things online, or did you take the route of just sort of contacting firms?
I did try with a few recruitment agencies and a few applications directly to firms. I think as a career changer, the perception that I got, whether or not right or wrong, was I was potentially overqualified, even though I had no experience in the financial planner space. So I think when people were, and you can probably testify to this, when people are actually actively recruiting, if they want a administration role, they want an administrator, or again, they want a paraplanner. They don't necessarily want some random career changer that wants to do X, Y, and Z over a course of a few years, because that doesn't fit in with what they need at the time.
Yeah, I completely agree. So coming from like a Recruit UK standpoint, when I'm working on a IFA administration vacancy, on a paraplanning vacancy as such, you know, there is usually someone has left that role, or it's, you know, someone's been promoted, or it's potentially business critical. So I'd say 99% of the time looking for someone that has that previous experience within a similar role. And when I speak with candidates like yourself, may that be, you know, people that are looking to make the career change, or people that are looking, you know, graduates looking to step into the industry, they very often spend a lot of time applying for job roles consistently on job boards and find that they're not getting any response, you know, they're not getting any interest and such. And it ties in very well with what we just mentioned there, that when a firm is hiring, you know, if it's a role they specifically need, it's usually they're going to be targeting or looking for someone with that experience. And if you look at it from a recruitment agency point of view, the client is coming to us looking for that skill set as such. So it's very interesting to know that you took a different approach, or maybe what other people would view as a slightly different approach, which is contacting firms directly as such, and then you yielded success and all sort of found your next role that way, instead of what might be the common, just applying to loads of job adverts and seeing what happens.
Yeah, and I think as you rightly point out, it's completely understandable that firms are going to need somebody to do the job straight away. And kind of by my own admission, I wouldn't have been able to just sit down and do it. I've had a shed load of patience from the guys that have been training me here, asking some ridiculously daft questions, or what I'd say, I've got a thick question, which is I don't really understand, I don't really know, but can you help me understand what I'm meant to be doing, or why do we do this, and what does that mean? And they have had the patience of saints. But I can completely see how smaller businesses haven't got time to do that. So in that sense, I'm really lucky. I suppose it is one of the challenges though for the industry, isn't it? You kind of hear a lot about people wanting new entrants as people are going to retire and a bit more diversity. But if you've come from a different career or are early on in your career, actually getting your foot in the door is quite a challenging thing to do.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's probably that, how does the industry change that to get more people in, if there's all these people out there wanting to, but equally it's that balance of small business, need a lot of time and support to be able to train up somebody from scratch. So it's definitely challenging. And you can see it from both sides.
It definitely is, as you said, like a balance as such, but I think it's also really encouraging for our audience to know that, you know, from coming from your experience, like someone like yourself, that, you know, it is doable. And you know, for yourself, you know, we had our first conversation, we said, I think we caught up for the first time back in the beginning of April. You know, by the beginning of June, you sort of landed your first role as such within the industry. So it's really encouraging to know that you might face challenges and you might face setbacks and you might not get everyone reply to you, but you know, there are firms out there that are willing to engage with individuals like yourself, and you know, on the flip side then can open the opportunities if you're motivated and come across well enough that obviously that they can see that you're an asset. So you said that you didn't necessarily send across your CV as such, you would send a little introduction about yourself. So what would you say in that what do you know, remember what you sort of said in that introduction?
Yeah, literally, hi, my name's Kate, I'm a career changer, worked in logistics and supply chain. A little bit about why I wanted a career change. As I said earlier, kind of really wanted to help others and feel like I was making a difference. And so it was all of the firms that I sent video asks for were because I had a genuine interest in what they do, what they were doing and what was on their website, and just asked for a coffee. And there were some really great people that would spend half an hour, 45 minutes with me, just talking about their business and what they did. And they would put me in touch with people in their organisation that had either career changed or had come in for a different route that wasn't typical to financial planning. So it just got me exposed to a lot of people who had a lot of interesting views, some of which I learned shed loads from, some of which it was just interesting to either reinforce or kind of make me go, actually, no, I'm doing the right thing for me, and I'm going in the right direction. So the intention when I was sending the video asks was never to try and get a job. It was to learn, and if the right firm was there willing to take a bit of a punt on me, then brilliant. But I think I was going to say, I think it was Adam Next Gen, he said you have to make trying to get a job your full-time job. So in that period of time where I was on gardening leave for 3 months, I was fortunate in the sense that I had some spare time, but it wasn't a nice sit in the garden, go on a bike ride, go for a run. And I was probably spending a good 6-7 hours a day trying to get myself a new job.
And I think that just goes to show, you know, it's going to be a challenge, you know, there is going to be obstacles. And I think I speak with candidates across the board. Some people, it takes them a very short succession to find the role within financial planning. With other people, it's sort of like a longer journey as such. But I think what you said there ties in very nicely, that it's never going to be easy. It's not going to land in your lap. You have to be the one that puts the work in and sells yourself, I guess, in an element to begin with, to sort of get your foot in the door.
Yeah, and I think anyone that's going to do a career change or is trying to do something, I put together a time scale. I was like, I'm going to give this my best shot for 6 to 9 months. If I haven't got an opportunity at that point, then I will go back to what I was doing and carry on doing it as a kind of part-time career change, if that makes sense. So I gave myself that set period of time and told myself I had to do all of what I could do in that space of time to be able to land the role. But it was good because if I was 3 months in, I know I was lucky at landing a role in 3 months, but if I hadn't have done that, I'd go, well, actually, you're only a third of the way through your plan in terms of getting that. So actually, it's still early days. Carry on and progress. So it would have meant that I'd have probably ended up with more qualifications because I'd have used that time to study. And then that hopefully would have put me in a better position. But yeah, I think you need to have a plan. You need to stick to it. And you just need to, I suppose, believe in yourself. And back yourself that you're doing the right thing, even if you are going to have those ups and downs.
Yeah, fab. And I guess believing in yourself and backing yourself ties in nicely what we spoke about very much to begin with, is this transferable skill set as such. And like we'll go into now, like I said, on the surface, what you did previously sounds completely different to what you were doing now, but when you actually delve into what you're physically doing and the skills that you're building up, there was definitely quite a lot of overlap, wasn't there?
Yeah, which I think people found interesting when I try and describe what it was that I was doing. So yeah, essentially I'd go for my last job. I was cost transformation program manager. As I said in an article, and when I was presenting back to Next Gen at the conference, it is a ridiculous job title. But essentially, all it meant that I was doing was identifying efficiencies in processes.
Mm-hmm.
And so to do that, you'd be put into a different team, a different department, and meet a new person, much like you'd do with a new client. You do a bit of a fact find with them. So what were they trying to solve and what were they trying to fix? Again, very similar to what have you got now? What are your assets? What do you want to achieve?
Mm-hmm.
Talk about where they want to go. So how do we make something more efficient? Client circumstances. Is it retirement? Are you wanting to gift money to your children? Are you wanting to buy a house, etc.? And then take all that information that you've gathered and work out what the best solution is for them. And then going away and implementing it. So very, very similar in terms of that process and the step-by-step way that you go with it. I was just doing it with containers and cargo from the Far East or supermarket supply chains, whereas this is people, money and feelings. So everybody's a person in terms of both those processes and both of those roles. So you've really got to get to understand the person. And I think that's one of the key skills that was very much transferable, but really understanding how to get from A to B.
Mm-hmm. I actually have, for the purposes of audio, I'm getting up my lovely branded wealth management diary. So I actually found, following when we booked obviously this podcast in, I found the notes from our first call back on April the 1st. So this was the first time that we caught up and we went through your transferable skills. So I think it just goes to show, and obviously I at the time had no idea what procurement really was either and what you were doing, but goes to show, we spoke about, so this is actually what I've got written down from the 1st of April. So we talk about being able to articulate complex ideas with ease, excellent interpersonal skills, problem solving, being able to sit down with, as you said, the fact finding element, being able to sit down with clients and understand what they're looking for, the empathy, the analysis of different options, and essentially adding value in even though it was different, in a holistic, positive way. So from your last role, you actually had such a bank of really, really crucial skills. And we've spoken about this a lot in the podcast. To be an excellent financial planner, it's not just about the technical knowledge behind you, it's all those soft skills as well, the being able to listen, the empathy and stuff like that. And you built up a lot of those, from your previous role, that you could really bring across and be such an asset to the financial planning industry. So I definitely think, for individuals like yourself that are looking to make that career change, having a look at that transferable skill set that you previously built that you can bring across and signposting that to wealth management firms. I don't know if you agree, but I personally think that's quite an important part of the process.
Yeah, and I think people will have more of those skills than they necessarily realize.
Yeah.
I think it wasn't until I knew that I had those skills, but it wasn't until talking to the guys at Next Gen and going, actually, if we bucket these down to how similar is it, actually you can get a whole financial planning process out of what I used to do. And it's essentially one in the same in terms of the top level process. It's just the subject matter that's different. And I think you can learn a subject matter. So if you've already got those skills, you're already doing a fantastic job and probably half of the battle.
Yeah. So for audience members out there that are listening to this and they've just listened to me reel off that list of transferable skills and they're interested in sort of a career change and they're thinking, oh God, I've got that sort of bank of skills, I'm good. Would you recommend that they look at financial planning as an industry? Do you think we should encourage more people with that skill set to sort of come across as such?
Absolutely. I think the caveat or the addition I'd add to that is I really wanted a career that I felt like I could make a difference. So even though I had those skill set, the importance for me on moving over was being able to sit down with real life people and see them make improvements or help them achieve goals that they didn't think they could get to. So that was for me probably the bigger motivation than going, oh, my skill set is this. What careers can I use my skill set in? Actually, I could have probably stayed in procurement quite happily for the next 20 years. But it was that thing for me that was missing, was that making a difference and helping others. So I think if you've got those skill sets and actually want to be in a career where you can actually see your end results and what you've done, then absolutely financial planning is definitely one of those careers that would tick all of those boxes.
Yeah. And you said you passed, how many exams have you passed now, Kate?
So I've done RO1 and RO4 now.
Oh my God, that is, well, a third of the way through, isn't it?
Yes.
So when did you start studying? Did you start studying alongside when you were looking for roles?
Yeah, so I started probably mid-April. So again, because I was on gardening leave, I had the time to kill. So when I say I was spending most of my time trying to look for a job, that was including getting some qualifications, because I think just being that person that says I want a career change isn't quite as powerful as somebody that sat down and studied quite possibly the dullest exam in RO1 on legislation. It's not the most exciting introduction into the world of financial planning as exams go. But yeah, at least it shows that I'm committed to that change, not just, I suppose, trying something out and then it doesn't work and then I go back to what I was doing. This was like, no, I'm absolutely all in for this. I don't want to go back to what I used to do. And so studying was a big part of that and starting that progress.
Yeah. And I always encourage this to people that are looking, to move into the industry for whatever reason or another. I think even having one exam under your belt, as you went, shows so much commitment. It shows that this is something that you're taking seriously. And I think, on the onset, it shows to firms that you are motivated and committed enough to sit there and revise for an exam without having any of the practical, on the job training alongside it. It's difficult. You're taking in a completely new subject, on your own. And I think I would definitely recommend it to, individuals that are looking to make that career change. Just if you've got the time and stuff, just sit there and try and at least get one under your belt, because it's only going to show to employers and firms, how committed you are about making the change into the industry.
Yeah, not going to lie, some of those sections of some of the exams, I'm going, this would be great if I actually did this job and knew what it was. But instead, you'd have to learn like what goes into a suitability report. When do you give these documents? What's the process? I'm like, I don't know, I can't remember. But I can imagine that having now done the job for a little while, actually you go, oh yeah, that's just what I know. So yeah, it was an interesting one. Worryingly forgotten a good portion of it now, but
I'm sure it will all come back.
Yeah.
I think we've covered really nicely there, Kate, like your journey into the industry. I think it's really encouraging for audience members out there to listen to Kate's story, because I speak to people that get quite demotivated. And as you said, there will be knockbacks. There probably is going to be challenges, especially like transitioning into an industry with no previous experience. Nothing is going to land in your, well, it's not very likely that something's going to land in your lap as such, but it's really interesting to hear, like, through taking some of the exams, through thinking about your transferable skill set, through networking, approaching other individuals within the industry, and ultimately, speaking to firms directly and not necessarily going through like job adverts and things like that, taking the initiative to formulate a list of who you would actually want to work for, and then getting in contact with them just goes to show that obviously you can land a role within the industry. And there's some really helpful hints and tips to people out there that are in a similar position to what you were in previously. We spoke about, then you said, that there is knockbacks, there is challenges, things like that. How did you pull yourself out of that? What was what sort of helped you to keep motivated, to keep on going?
Yeah, a good one.
Lots of tea.
I think it was I didn't want to go back to what I was doing, and I really believed and still believe, because it's still early on in there and I'm going to have some setbacks and going to have to pull myself up as I go through this journey, that it was something that I really wanted to do. I'd fallen into my old career. You kind of hear a lot of people fall into financial planning. And I was going through the motions. I was doing really well at it. But just because you do really well at something doesn't mean you want to be doing it all the time. And so because I think I knew that really wasn't for me, committing myself to a new career that I was far more comfortable was going to give me, I suppose, the contentment that I was after. Everybody's got to work, but you want to be enjoying what you do. So the thought of doing this for another 20, 30 years, actually, I was like, yes, I'm on the right path now. And so when you have the ups and downs, I suppose you've got to have that vision of why it is that you're doing it. Because as you rightly say, it's really hard. You have these moments where I'd wake up in the morning going, oh, I haven't heard back from anybody. Nothing. I'm speaking to recruiters, no offense, that are going, I've got no jobs for you, because people are after qualified people or people that can hit the ground running. You're going, I'm 33, so going down the route of graduate schemes, like, I don't want to be a graduate again. How am I ever going to get into this? And there was frustration because I knew I wanted to do it. I knew I had the skill set to do it, or at least break in. Whether or not I'll make a good advisor or good planner in the future, still TBC. But it was kind of really just anchoring back to, I knew what I wanted to do, why I was doing it, and that actually it was the right thing for me. So it just meant that there was always that little bit of spark of motivation, even when you were having a really bad day and nobody had come back and studying wasn't going particularly well. Or I think for me, the other big one was I had an identity in procurement and supply chain. I'd been successful in that. And I could say that, yes, I worked for X organisation doing this and this was my job and I was chartered in it and I'd worked all my qualifications for that. By picking something else, I was just fresh-faced Kate, like with nothing to fall back on, and it was going to be a new identity. So there is a lot of, or I certainly experience a lot of ups and downs and emotional turmoil in the change. But I think it was just continually focusing on, this was the right thing for me. It's what I really want to do. And I can future view me doing this role in the kind of next 5-10 years. So it just kept me that little bit of motivation, even on the days when things weren't going too well.
Yeah, and I think we touched on this literally just previously, but I think it's also about stop checking with yourself and realizing that how far you've come. Fair enough, you might not have landed the role yet, but you picked up that RO1, you're halfway through studying that book, you have had some, because even though the conversations, as you said, you might have a conversation with a firm or a financial planner and you might not get a job role out of it, but you've got like a really useful bit of information, or you've got something that you can take moving forward. I guess it's always about acknowledging as well how far you've come and not beating yourself up that you might have not got to that end goal just yet, or everyone's constantly changing the post of what the end goal is anyway. Realizing that how far you're doing, even making the decision and making the leap and working for it.
Yeah, I think, and you've hit the nail on the head there. A lot of people have turned around to me and said that I'm brave, and I don't believe that I am brave, but having a career and then I'll use the phrase giving it up. I haven't given it up. I chose to leave it behind, but choosing to leave it behind and doing something different, I suppose, can be seen as brave because you're taking that leap into the unknown. So I think anybody that actually acts on doing something different is already a part of the way there, because a lot of people will be sat there wanting to do something. Even myself, for the last 3 years before I finally did this, and don't get me wrong, being made redundant was the kick up the backside to do it. I was sat there going, oh, I just want to do something different. But did I do anything about it? Nah. So making that first step and deciding and doing something different, don't get me wrong, on reflection, I'd have liked to have known that I wanted to do this when I was employed, and I probably have started studying on the evenings and maybe made that transition much more comfortably by being like, well, I'm diploma qualified and can I get a job now? But yeah, I think starting that journey to it is just the fantastic thing to do in the first instance. And therefore, as you say, you get those ups and downs, but you just need to be kind to yourself, and then every so often check back in and see what you've done. Like, I don't do that. You, before we came on to the podcast, went, how's it gone and how's it been? And kind of go, oh, actually, do you know what? I've passed 2 exams. I've got a job. I'm a now trainee paraplanner.
I know.
I'm running an ultra marathon, so training 50 mile a week. I'm getting my house renovated, and not just saying this stuff just for interest and kind of just look at all the stuff I've done, but you go, blooming heck, I've actually done a lot. But it's not until somebody asks you that you check in. So I think having that regular check-in with yourself to just be a bit nicer and go, look at all this life that you've got going on, as well as all of this pressure you're putting on yourself. You don't need that much of it, do you? You just need to be a bit nicer and go, you're going at a good pace, you're doing everything that you can, and therefore that you're good enough.
Yeah, little by little is what we say here. And one of my favorite phrases given me to my line manager was, you reap what you sow. So you might not get it back tomorrow, you might not get it back next month, you might not get it back till next year, but all the little by little that you are consistently doing, you know, you're only going to reap what you sow. What advice would you then give, or maybe even telling yourself from 3 years ago, but maybe someone that's in the position where they are unhappy, they know they're unhappy in their current career, in their current job, they want to go do something different, but they're scared about breaking the norm or leaving something behind? What would you say to them?
What's the worst that can happen? I think I had the biggest fear of giving it up, because I'd worked so hard for it, but I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't making me happy. But I still didn't want to lose that identity that I'd built myself a career in a previous life, had been successful at it. I didn't want to let that go, because that was a little bit of me and my identity. Now, don't get me wrong, I've done loads of work to go, actually, your identity is not what your career looks like, it's who you are as a person. But that was the thing that was stopping me changing. And I think everybody can wait for that kick up the backside to make that change. But I think, as you say, it's baby steps. If you know you want to do something and you know what it is that you want to do, you can make those little changes. I just did it on steroids because I had a bit of gardening and had been like shoved out the door. But everything that I did, you could do in a lot more chilled out way, build your qualifications up for the industry, make some connections, hang around in the right places. But I really go back to, what's the worst that can happen? I've got a really supportive of the half that just went, yeah, go for it. If you don't have a job for however long, so be it. What you can go back and work in your old career if you need to on a temporary contract while you're looking for this new one. So I had the support network there that told me I could do it. And it was just me that wasn't. So I think it's getting out of your own headspace and going, what's better or what's worse? Staying what I'm doing now and being unhappy, or taking a risk with the potential contentment of a career that makes me want to get out of bed on a Monday morning rather than dread what the week's going to entail.
And I think the one lovely thing about this whole podcast is if anyone is in that position now when that is how they're feeling and they need to get out of there, because your own head is like your biggest mental barrier. I think your own mental state is the biggest barrier. I think having you on here, Kate, and the hints and tips that will help people potentially navigate it and the position you're in now can demonstrate to people that you can do it, that it is possible. And it is that fear and that leap, but it's a leap with anything, setting up your own business. The biggest risks will also potentially bring you the biggest biggest reward. So it's really encouraging to see you here, Kate, and encouraging the audience and other people in similar positions to yourself that, you know, you can do it with the hard work and the motivation and the drive. And you wrote an article for Money Marketing, and you spoke about in it about how passionate you are about how much value second careerists can add to the industry. Do you mind explaining a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I'll give you some, I suppose, live examples. Like Lucent, who I work for, are fantastic. They have been super supportive. Steve, the kind of business owner, he's like, just whatever we can do to help you get to where you want to get to, we'll do it, which I appreciate. It's a really nice thing, great thing for a business to be offering. But I come in with a bit more of a business corporate mentality from where I've come from, the roles I've done, and kind of sitting there working in the role that I am, going to, not questioning why we do stuff, but trying to understand it and go, oh, could you be more efficient here, or could you do this a little bit differently? And actually, instead of just learning to do client liaison and just being a trainee paraplanner, I'm also kind of going, oh, how could we improve this process here to make it more, I suppose, more efficient for the business, but also a better experience for the client? And they are happily taking that on board. So I'm bringing some of those old skill sets into the new role, which has been really nice. And kind of we're seeing the benefit of the client experience from doing that, but they're so open to listening to what they call a different perspective, because I haven't been in the industry for long and I just have a different lens on things. And I don't think that's kind of based on my background in procurement and supply chain. I think anybody with just a different view is a great asset to any business, because you just got a new pair of eyes and you're looking at it from a different lens.
100%, definitely agree. And also, and you spoke about this in the article, you know, second career is someone that's coming in like yourself into financial planning, is someone that's obviously really interested and really enthused and really passionate about the industry, to want to step outside, or I don't want to use giving up, because I don't feel like you've given up anything. It's just something that you've sort of evolved from as such. But you've given up a separate industry, a separate career, to want to step into financial planning. You must be super interested and super passionate about the industry to want to do that. And I think sometimes that can also go amiss. Yeah,
and you hear a lot of people talk about wanting to leave the industry, and kind of see a lot of, I suppose, there's Facebook groups that I'm on that going, oh, how can we change this? It's just the same old. But I suppose I'm really lucky that I've had a great financial advice experience by myself. I've joined a business that gives great financial advice and an experience to clients. Everybody needs that. Everybody goes to work to earn money so they can enjoy their life once they finish work, or enjoy their life whilst they're working. And so I think as a service, you talk a lot about emotional well-being, you talk a lot about physical well-being, but actually financial well-being is probably the thing that leads into some of that mental well-being challenge.
No, I agree.
If you can offer it to more people, or give access to more people sound financial advice, I think it's a real great service that people don't realise they need, but actually fundamentally couldn't think of anything better to be able to offer to clients.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think having someone like yourself, you know, the different perspective, you know, the motivation that you bring, you know, also that skill set that is slightly different, and it's obviously going to continually be molded to fit a financial planning firm, but as you said, could add value in different ways that you might not even realize, is, you know, lots of reasons why I think people like yourselves, you know, can be assets to wealth management firms. We spoke about previously, and, you know, there are times when someone leaves a firm or a role is business critical, and you need someone to have that set amount of experience and stuff, because you need them to come in and hit the ground running. But what would you say to like recruiters, business owners, hiring managers, things like that potentially notice they have a vacancy, or they have a spot that needs to be filled? They can't find, you know, there's someone with the picture perfect, you know, written down 5 years experience doing this, that, and the other. What would you say to them?
So give a career changer a go. And I know it's hard because you as a recruiter, you've got to put a certain amount of candidates in front of someone, but I think a wild card that can't ever go down amiss, can it? And I think people probably overestimate the level of training that they need to give a new person into a career. I think if somebody's changing careers, the level of motivation is probably going to be higher than somebody that's already in the industry, just changing jobs. Now, that's not taking away from that person that might be motivated to change roles because they're not enjoying themselves or they're after something else. But I think career changers have that motivation and that desire to learn and aren't just going to be sat there doing a job. They're going to be taking that time to make sure that they're upskilling themselves as quickly as possible, because it's not just the hiring manager that knows they need some training. The career changer knows that we need training and we need to upskill ourselves as quickly as possible. So I think it's about speaking to people who are slightly different, who have come from different careers. As I say, it doesn't necessarily have to be procurement and supply chain, it can be anything. But if they've got the fundamental skills and the fundamental attributes that are going to make great financial advisors, great paraplanners, whatever kind of you're wanting to career change into, I think it's a lot easier than people think to give that person the opportunity, because it's only gonna take a few months for somebody to get up to speed. And it's the same with changing systems and processes. People are still going to need to get up to speed on those. So I think give people a chance.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, and I think that's such a good anecdote there. If you change what back office system you use, you're going to have to retrain everyone, and those processes just naturally happen sometimes. You have to retrain your whole staff body, but bringing someone in like yourself, you're training one new person on one new things. They know they're going to need the training. They're going to be receptive to it. And you're probably also, as you said, overestimating how much training they're going to do. They've already built up a massive bank of skill sets from the previous role that they've been doing. They're probably going to pick things up even quicker than you expect them to.
Yeah, like the system that we use here is horribly unuser friendly. So I can't imagine me finding it unuser friendly is going to be any different to the next person if they've never used that system before. It's still you think it's going to be there, but it's actually in that one. It's just, and I think that the training material that the business has is also a great one. Like Lucent here have got some really great detailed process guides, and actually being able to follow them, I'm pretty self-sufficient in that respect. So I think it probably also lends itself to the business and how they're set up to support people that are new to the business, not necessarily just new to the industry. So I've been lucky in that sense.
Fab. And we talked about it previously. Obviously, there is lots of people leaving the industry, or people leaving the industry for one reason or another. There also is generally in tasks it's quite an aging industry in that sense. There's definitely much more of a skills shortage. Do you think second career-ists could sort of be part of the solution to the skills shortage as such?
Yeah, absolutely. I think most people want to do something different, don't they? Not everybody's in the career that they want to be in. And if we can advertise financial planning and sell financial planning in the awesomeness that it can be and is in certain circumstances, I can't see why people wouldn't want to be part of the industry. I think it's just signposting a little bit clearer and more businesses being more open. And again, I know that that's easier said than done because of business circumstances, but lots of people do want to move careers, and this is a great career. I just think people either have that perception that financial advisors are, as we always talk about, that stereotypical group of people. And we just need to publicise more actually what financial advisors could be and are in a growing number.
Yeah, definitely. So what does the future look like for Kate now? what are you hope? Obviously, you're still quite infant in your career research. Obviously, you are going from strength to strength. We touched back about being a bit nicer to yourselves, since we first caught up in April, you've landed your job, you passed a third of the way through your diploma, you've stepped into paraplanning. So you're doing amazingly well. But what's your long-term ambitions? What would you like to do in the future?
I don't know. And I don't know is a really cop-outy answer, but one of the things that I've learned is to enjoy the journey and see where you end up, because I'm very conscious that as a person, I can set myself these ridiculously challenging goals. And so don't get me wrong, in my future, in my crystal ball, I absolutely want to be a financial planner. And that's the aspiration, to really kind of see that helping others and making difference come to life. How I get there, what it ends up looking like in terms of where I work, who I work for in 10, 15, 20 years time, absolutely not a clue. But I'm enjoying the change. I'm enjoying being in a career, in an industry that, as I said, I want to get up in the morning, that I can see the difference that financial planning makes. I think I'd love to get more people from different careers into the industry and make that pathway a lot easier. Like Next Gen are doing great things, as is kind of a financial advisor mentorship that was LinkedIn, that is now over on a Next Gen platform as well, and really helping people. But it'd be great to get a bit more of a kind of entrance route in there. But yeah, in summary, I just really want to enjoy myself and enjoy everything that comes at it. I never thought I'd ever be on a podcast yet. And so I was like, how amazing is that? People are going to listen to me, whether or not they take on board any advice. But
I'm sure they will.
Fun stuff.
I'm sure they will. I was going to say, if you're part of your long-term ambitions and stuff is being able to help other people in the similar position that you're in or you are currently, this podcast is definitely a stepping stone in the way to doing that. You've been an amazing guest, Kate, in the sense that you provided some excellent tips for second career-ist, how to navigate getting into the financial planning profession. Also, touching on that skill set and how to sort of realize and what passions and drivers should move you across into the industry. But also, this is a brilliant podcast for business owners, for hiring managers, for potentially recruiters, for people to sort of recognize second careerists, the massive value that they can add, and they could potentially be a massive solution of the skills shortage within the profession within the future. So you've been an excellent guest today, Kate. It's been a pleasure to have you on.
No, thank you for having me. It's been a fun thing to do on a Friday.